This was a very tough video to write. Like, I needed to rehearse my scripting process for it. I feel like I needed to finish the whole script before writing it, because I don't think I've truly processed what I witnessed during the second season of The Rehearsal. The first season is one of the most meta pieces of art I've ever watched, and there's a few things from this second season that I haven't stopped thinking about. Instead of reviewing the season episode by episode, I want to discuss how it made me feel. As everyone who's watched the show has learned, poor communication can be very deadly, despite how hard it is to put it into words. Because this goofy TV show, made by a Canadian comedian who had really good grades from one of the best business schools in the country, which is supposed to be about him solving the issue of poor communication between pilots causing plane crashes, shows some of the most raw human interactions ever captured on film, has some very profound things to say about human relations, alongside some of the most insane things that a reality show has ever done. Like, so much of my initial response to this show was to quietly scream to myself, and perfectly explains how society treats mental health. I'm sorry if this video is a little scattered, but that's how the show left me. The first topic I want to talk about are the 3 things I feel like I shouldn't have watched. 2 of them are very similar, so I'm going to start with those. In the first episode, we are introduced to Moody, a co-pilot who is insecure about his relationship in a bizarre way for seemingly no reason. Him and his girlfriend are kind of long distance, and he's worried that she's going to fall in love with someone at her Starbucks job. Like, he seems very paranoid that she's going to meet a customer, be swept off of her feet after this mythical guy showers her in gifts. I'm going to be honest, Moody, kind of a wild thought process. I don't know what he went through in previous relationships that would lead him to that conclusion. Maybe she's hinted at customers gifting her stuff, which is why he has those thoughts. Because he's never talked about this. He has no reason to assume that this is happening. Later on in the episode, we meet Moody's girlfriend, Cindy. When talking to Nathan one-on-one, she mentions that she has received gifts from one customer, and the audience realizes, oh, Moody's feelings are completely justified. Hell, Nathan himself is kind of confused when he first reveals those fears. All of this leads to the most real State of the Union I've ever seen a couple hold in any TV show. One thing Nathan is really good at doing is showing people talk in a very organic way. In real life, people pause a bit longer in the middle of their sentence to think about what they're going to say. Sometimes they trip over their words or articulate a point in a fragmented way. While in film, everything flows in a less organic way, but it's in a more comprehensive way for the viewer. Like, count how many times in real life people kind of talk over each other and see how little that happens in movies. Either because of Nathan's awkwardness or the awkwardness of the people he gets on his shows, everyone talks in a very realistic way. Through that, I find a lot of his shows hold up a mirror to the audience. Because of that, when Moody and Cindy talk, it's painfully uncomfortable. I shouldn't be watching this. This feels way too personal. This is a couple who doesn't even seem that close considering how long they've been dating for, confronting some serious deep-rooted insecurities and issues that have seemingly never been brought up before. Like, compare them to how we see other long-term couples in the show. They seem distant. Granted, it could be because it's a weird situation or they're not able to be themselves in front of cameras. For the record, those other couples were. But when he starts fidgeting with the controls after mentioning how seeing people do that always bothers him is too real, he is very clearly suffering. And because they haven't built up strong enough communication as a couple, he isn't able to fully articulate his feelings. It's only done through an action that is very easy to miss if you are in that moment. He calls out her behavior, but doesn't explain why and how it hurt him. I shouldn't be watching them go through this. This shouldn't be happening in front of cameras. But a theme of this season is poor communication, and that's what led them here. Like, when they get out of the plane, it's like they've separately decided it's over. It's a different vibe from the weird distant one I got when we first saw them together. And it's kind of hard to watch the possible end of a relationship like this. I have seen episodes of reality television where people break up, but it's always a big fight that builds up to fine, we're through. true, because everyone involved cares more about the TV part of reality TV. But this, man, I feel like I'm sat at a table beside a couple having their final dinner together before breaking up. I feel bad for everyone involved. Silver lining, I'm happy Nathan was able to get them to finally talk about this friction in their relationship, which seemingly made them realize that everything isn't fine, when up to this point, they were together. So they must be fine. But this shouldn't have been on TV, right? This is way too raw of a rough patch at best, and way too real of a breakup at worst. I shouldn't be watching this. Also wild that Nathan accidentally broke up a couple this season. And I guess he did try to make up for it in episode 4, which has the other painfully raw thing that happened. In this episode, we meet a pilot named Colin. Nathan tries to give Colin a confidence boost in asking out women by trying out a new method of rehearsing where a pack of actors repeat everything he does. Later, Nathan asks if any of them find Colin attractive and tells them it's okay if they would like to act on those feelings. After the most low-key, unhinged part of the show,
wet dream? Wow. You had a wet dream about Einstein?
I was turned on to him.
Sidebar, ever since this episode aired, the top comment on every single Nathan Fielder related TikTok I've seen is, "This guy reminds me of Einstein." Either that or,
"You know what you are? You remind me of the Wizard of Loneliness."
Which is apparently a movie from like the 70s or the 80s, not just some random thing that dude made up. This fan base is so funny. Back to the topic at hand. One of the actresses, Emma, does end up striking a rapport with Colin, and they end up going out.
I don't mean to disturb you, but I want to just tell you, you know you remind me of Einstein. You have a certain reserved sexuality about you.
We see a few of the dates, and they are some of the hardest scenes I've ever watched. Again, because they're too real at points, I shouldn't be watching these dates. In the first one, it doesn't start out too bad, just a cute little mini golf date, but when it ends and they walk back to their cars, it very much seems like she wanted him to kiss her. And the camera holds for what seems like an hour before he looks up at an airplane and she cracks a joke.
Is that you? Is that your ride?
No. I was about to say, if it is, I'm late.
Yep, there's your Uber. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, very pretty night.
Well, it was very nice seeing you.
10 out of 10 joke too. We've all seen parts in art where both characters want to kiss and it just doesn't happen. Or one character gives the signal but the other character doesn't act on it due to anxiety or some other reasons. But ultimately, it's two actors acting. As good as actors can be, they can never replicate this level of realism. Whatever is keeping Colin from making that move cannot be realistically replicated because of the situation actors have when it comes to intimate moments and consent. It's why the episode dedicates a lot of time to that very subject. It's also because whatever is holding Colin back comes from a deep place. A mixture of care for the other person that you can only truly replicate if people are seeing each other, and anxiety of messing it up, I guess? I don't know why Colin didn't kiss her. It's possible that Emma's expectations for when things escalate physically are slightly ahead of his because of things that have happened in her life. But that goes both ways. It could be something in Colin's life that's causing his expectations to be slightly slower. And because they're not discussing it, they're ending up in these awkward moments that do happen in this stage of a relationship that I am being forced to watch. But hey, if they keep finding themselves on dates with each other, they must be fine, right? I shouldn't be thinking about this. I don't know these people. I will never know them. I shouldn't be seeing these early stages of their relationship, or the dynamics of two people who have different expectations of the speed in which different levels of physical intimacy are achieved. Film doesn't show these parts of a relationship in such a raw way for a reason. It can be awkward and uncomfortable to witness and be in. This is way too personal. I shouldn't be watching this. And that's not even the most awkward part between these two. Later on, Nathan attempts to force out a kiss by having Colin and Emma act out a scene together. And he does go in for one. On the cheek. I hated watching this. I shouldn't be watching these people who are seemingly having a problem in advancing physically have what should have been their first kiss turn into a peck on the cheek. And Emma's reaction makes me want to scream. The little "that's it" head tilt and her hand It's clear she wanted more than that, man. While editing, I noticed Emma's reaction when Colin asked if he could kiss her, and I actually screamed, I can't. This is so hard to edit, man. Oh, I hate this so much. Even the silence before he asks. Going through this and the Moody and Cindy breakup back to back has been so hard to watch. I have screamed so much over the last hour or so. I just can't deal with this. This show is so uncomfortable. Why did you make me watch this, Nathan? I really shouldn't have watched either of these two couples go through this. And now I've had to edit the footage of it happening. But it's also clear that Colin isn't comfortable doing more with her yet. Or in this situation. Either because they haven't reached the point where he's personally ready for the first kiss in a relationship to happen. Or because he's on camera and Nathan Fielder is standing in the corner. No matter what, I shouldn't be watching these two people go through this. None of us should. Realistically, they need to communicate about this issue of different expectations and work it out off camera. It's like how the main theme of the season is how poor communication can lead to major issues. Because these two do have good chemistry. I hope they do start dating. But I shouldn't have watched this kiss. I shouldn't have seen her reaction. I shouldn't have watched this mini golf date. This is way too personal for television. I don't think any couple would want this stage of their relationship recorded. This is a way too real depiction of an early stage of a relationship where two people are moving at different paces. Both of these are examples of polar opposite situations that you should only be witnessing if you are one of the two people involved. One, the end of a relationship, and the other attempting to start. Again, we don't see stuff depicted like this anywhere else because it's real, it is raw, it is uncomfortable. I know I keep using those words, but that is what I see in these scenes. That is what they make me feel. These are things that can be hard to go through, and they are harder to watch as a bystander. What does it say about the community who loves this show? Also, what does it say about me having watched this full season twice and has recommended it to many people? If you couldn't tell, I've always found that Nathan's work has been really good at holding up a mirror to the audience. And what does it say about all of us after we still tell people to watch this show after the 3rd episode? The third thing I shouldn't have watched doesn't relate to getting a way too real glimpse into strangers' lives. It's Nathan as a giant baby getting his diaper changed. No, that isn't the weirdest thing that happens in those 5 minutes. Go watch it yourself. I don't even know if I could show it here. In an episode that manages to make dog clones the most normal section, Nathan lives Captain Sully's life in an attempt to understand how he did what he thinks most pilots fail to do. Asking their co-pilot for help, opening up a dialogue, leading to the miracle over the Hudson. By live his life, I mean from infancy to when he landed the plane, which included him getting his diaper changed and being breastfed by a giant puppet. I'm surprised he didn't recreate his birth. I feel like I shouldn't have watched this for a very different reason than the previous two. Same thing goes for what he does beside that robot in the plane. I don't think I needed to witness Nathan as a giant baby breastfeeding. I don't think I need to witness anyone doing that. The only context I want to see someone as a giant baby is when these guys show up in a Like a Dragon game. Coming clean here, the only reason why I bothered to mention it is because it is it is the most unhinged thing I have ever witnessed. And I don't know what to do with that info, so I feel like I just need to say it. But it's also a good segue into the themes of the show. Not because of the imagery in that moment relating to it. It doesn't. Why did you show me it, Nathan? Because the themes are really brought up in this episode. A decent bit after the baby thing, Nathan mentions how Captain Sully listened to the band Evanescence and their song Bring Me to Life, and then shares a theory about how the song helped him through a rough patch in his life after the passing of his father. Note, as a pilot, he is not allowed to seek any mental health care without being grounded. So he looked towards the power of music to work through it. All of this culminates to the miracle on the Hudson, one of the few occasions where a pilot asks their co-pilot for help. During the incident, Captain Sully goes silent for 23 seconds. And as Nathan says,
but the chorus to Evanescence's Bring Me to Life just happens to be exactly 23 seconds long.
There isn't a big enough number in the universe to measure how quickly my jaw hit the floor in this moment. I believe there are two main themes in this season, and they are both shown here. One of them being about poor communication. The other is a cry for help, like in Bring Me to Life, and no longer hiding your true self for as imperfect as it may be. In relation to the show, I've been taking it more as people hiding their true selves when they're in pain. I want to look at the poor communication theme first. That's why we see reenactments of co-pilots being afraid to speak up, and the pilot in a position of power shooting down their co-pilot. Alongside those examples, we see a relationship crash and burn because they fail to communicate their insecurities and behavior that the other person isn't comfortable with. And a relationship possibly failed to take off despite the chemistry due to a lack of communication about the pace each party expects to be moving at in relation to intimacy. The brilliant thing about showing us these two very real examples is how they put into perspective what Nathan is telling us about aviation safety. Most of us don't understand what it's like to be in the cockpit of a plane, but we know what it's like to be in the cockpit of a relationship. -5 points to anyone who is about to go into the comments and make a sex joke relating to the cockpit of a relationship. The thing I find most fascinating about the theme isn't how correct it is or how much Nathan believes in it. It's that Nathan has built so much of his career off of that very issue. Nathan For You exists because people in a lower position of power than him went along with his stupid ideas. Watching the show for the first time and on every rewatch, I found the funniest parts of every single episode to be when he finished telling the small business owners his idea. Deep down, you can tell every person has the same thought. I shouldn't do this, but if I end up on TV, I'll get free publicity. If it doesn't go well, it won't bankrupt me. At worst, I lose some money until the episode airs. At best, this stupid plan works out, and I end up on TV. Nathan For You also shows you can do whatever you want if you have a TV career. For the small businesses, the risks of saying no is the same if a co-pilot speaks up. It is going to be bad for them financially. Nathan got 4 seasons and 32 episodes out of what he sees is the issue with aviation safety and human relations. Imbalanced power dynamics leading to people not speaking up out of fear, and how poor communication can break down a relationship. And the same can be said for this show. There were so many moments in the rehearsal where realistically, someone should have spoken up about what Nathan was doing. The only time I can think about it happening over the course of these 2 seasons was something that he told an actor to say. And with the season 2 finale, it's like he's challenging someone to speak up. It all culminates in him piloting a 737 filled with actors. I was so stressed during this scene, especially when he landed the plane because he explained how that was the biggest hurdle for him. At one point I remembered he's still alive, so that helped when watching this. This was a stupid idea. I think he could have figured out safer options to accomplish the same thing. But this show, his career lives in these bounds. HBO over the course of 2 years could have told him no. It's not a smart idea to learn how to fly a plane to prove your point. I was shocked the former head of the NTSB didn't say, hey man, don't do this. I get that you did the training and all, but like, people can die. None of the actors involved spoke up and said no.
Wow, actors.
None of the crew spoke up and said no. Everyone around Nathan did exactly what he believes is a massive issue with aviation safety and personal relationships. People being unable to speak up or provide a good enough environment for them to listen. I do feel like if somebody brought their concerns to him, he would have backed down and found another way to do it. I can hear him giving a monologue about how he wants to do this, but doing so would be hypocritical given what the show is about. That's why I agree with Nathan calling this the miracle over the Mojave, because it's a miracle that this even happened. Thanks to Nathan keeping an open dialogue with his co-pilot, who is more experienced, but in a lesser position of power. It was brilliant television. The other main theme of the show is what Bring Me to Life is about. A cry for help. Nathan explains that's the meaning behind the song in the Sully episode, and implies that the 23 seconds he spent listening to the song allowed him to reach out to his co-pilot for help. The final 2 episodes of the season explore Nathan's mental health. He acknowledges something a portion of his fan base has picked up on, his persona in relation to autism. And we meet the only person to be on any of Nathan's shows who knows who he is. And the entire time time she's on screen, you can tell she believes he's on the spectrum. Even getting him to participate in a few questions of a test for it, where you have to guess the emotion based off of close-ups of people's eyes. Nathan goes 0-2.
Was there anything else with this you wanted
Nope.
to show me? Or
That's
okay.
it.
In the next episode, when he's filling out his health form, he stops at the question about mental health, as he is feeling anxious and stressed about flying a plane and is seemingly in denial about being on the spectrum. So he goes and gets a test done to confirm that he is suffering from stress, anxiety, and etc. He tries to avoid doing any tests that relate to autism, but to his dismay, it's an all-in-one package. The results won't come in time, so he says, screw it. To my knowledge, I don't have these things because I haven't been diagnosed yet. And he puts no. During the Captain Sully episode, they say how pilots cannot seek any professional mental health care without being grounded, which can only lead to worsening someone's mental health, as one trip to therapy can end their career. The FAA is forcing poor communication about one's mental state on pilots. Fun fact, during the show's airing, I believe the week around the airing of the Captain Sully episode, Newark's air traffic control went dark. Luckily, it led to no crashes. The controllers were allowed to take mental health breaks and were able to go see professional help because it was a very stressful event. But if a pilot is dealing with mental health issues, or if they experience something equally as traumatic on the job and they seek help, they're grounded. All right, FAA, I'm seeing the double standard here. A lot of what we see from pilots is kind of a cry for help. Like, they mentioned how much they were willing to speak to the crew because this was probably one of the first times since they've gotten their job they were able to be so open about themselves. Which is why when Nathan gets his test results in, he doesn't check them. The show then slowly zooms into his eyes and asks the audience, what emotion is he feeling? Calling back to the test that he took in episode 5. My initial reading of this was him coping about any mental health issues the test could have revealed, because if he's here, he must be fine. I've seen a lot of people talk about the close-up on the eyes mirroring the test, but there's one thing I think a lot are missing, and it might be because it's a meme. What song is Isabella singing again? Bring Me to Life. A song he said Captain Sully used to cope. A song that spoke to him. A song that is a cry for help. That's what I believe he's thinking in this moment. He didn't just walk in Captain Sully's shoes. He bought the whole fit. I'm not saying that because he lived so much of his life. Because to truly understand the struggles that pilots go through in relation to their mental health, he became one. In a move I can only describe as the ultimate rehearsal. Because this whole show has always been about Nathan trying to understand people more. It's because to truly understand the struggles pilots go through in relation to their mental health, he became one, and then told us to ask about his mental health. He can never learn those test results because he will lose his secondary job. He cursed himself with one thing he believes pilots have to deal with every single day in an attempt to improve aviation safety. In an attempt to help them, he joined them. He's now suffering in silence alongside them, only finding solace through means the FAA won't ground him over, like Bring Me to Life or making this whole season of television. A part of this feels like a challenge to the FAA. Like, he gets so close to saying that he lied on this form. Like, didn't he? At the very least, he is preventing himself from getting information that could change the status of this form, because he is openly ignoring a doctor that could change his answer. The show did the impossible too. For the first time in my life, I am able to take Bring Me to Life seriously as someone who didn't listen to it growing up or has never seen Ben Affleck's Daredevil. It is no longer a meme to me. It's become what it's intended to be. Nathan is coping about his results, but he's in the cockpit, so he must be fine. The personal reason alone makes it such a hard-hitting line, but it also speaks to a big problem in society. Pilots aren't the only ones who are suffering with mental health issues in silence. The world sadly still has a if you're here, you must be fine mentality towards mental health, and it's only leaving people to suffer. It's getting better, but sadly, it's only really talked about on a large scale during specific days dedicated to talking about mental health. We see it brought up for women in May and men in June, which honestly is kind of fitting that I'm uploading it in one of those months. Here in Canada, we have Bell Let's Talk Day in January. And I kind of hate that it's tied to one of our 2 telecom companies, but hey, it exists. Other than in those moments, the only time that mental health is widely discussed is when something bad happens. Too many aren't open about their mental health enough in relationships, either platonic, romantic, or professional. And the people in those relationships may not be communicating well to facilitate talking about one's mental health, causing everyone to sit in the cockpit in silence, while their mental health slowly worsens, or they put people's livelihoods at stake. Take a guess what Nathan blames the '08 housing crisis on, by the way. If Moody and Cindy are still together going into the show, they must be fine, right? The perception of being fine is happening at the cost of Moody's mental health. It's a clear source of stress and anxiety for him. Not communicating only damaged the relationship to bring it to this point.
Yeah, I don't know. You want to give each other a hug or?
Sure, I guess.
Okay. Okay, nice.
And it isn't just about Nathan and all of the pilots we see in the show crying out for help. I think it's also a cry to help people. You know, I think I have fully processed season 2 of The Rehearsal and understand what Nathan is trying to tell us. It's unreal how through the guise of solving aviation safety, this season perfectly encapsulates the biggest issues with human relation and how mental health is treated. It's the best depiction of relationship struggles because it's too real with it, making it super uncomfortable to watch. And I think nothing tackles how people suffer in silence out of fear better than it. The show can't explicitly say that this whole thing is a cry for help, because that would be good communication. And the show isn't about good communication. It's about showing us the dangers of bad communication. This is brilliant. I think it might be the best season of television of all time. Like what, 2 lines ago? I forget how I worded it. I just realized that right now while talking about the show. The more I think about it, the more layers are exposed, and I realize that this show isn't just about aviation safety, but relates to everyone as a whole. I think that's why the show has taken off in popularity with this season. They are noticing that what the show is trying to say doesn't just relate to pilots. It has fully convinced me that too many things fall apart due to poor communication. Whether it's because of a power imbalance or fears of being open with someone about feelings and intimacy both. Throw on mental health not being talked about, and people are forced to suffer in silence. I really didn't think about how deep this show was when I was initially watching it. Like, I fully got what Nathan was putting down about himself, but I never noticed how much of his career is built off of nobody telling him no when there's a power imbalance where he's the pilot in the cockpit. And through trying to figure out what exactly leads to people poorly communicating in different situations, he found pilots suffering. He found people suffering out of fear of losing something, either a relationship or their job. That suffering is only hurting people. And sadly, too many still don't have a good attitude around mental health, and they are just forcing those people to suffer. Much like the FAA is forcing pilots to suffer. We really need to heed Nathan's words about communication and mental health. I've seen so many people share pictures on TikTok of pilots and co-pilots talking before a flight, overhearing the captain all ears and the officer blunt dialogue. Aviation safety is starting to change for the better. Nathan's been on tour too, going on major news networks talking about this.
So you're concerned about airline safety?
Well, I don't want to die.
I'm beyond happy that this might actually lead to real change that will save people's lives. But we need to be talking about the greater implications of the show when it comes to communication and mental health. He showed us real examples of this happening with people in a theoretical cockpit alongside a literal one for a reason. We don't need to change our attitude about these things in relation to pilots alone. Society, we live in a society as a whole, needs to address these issues with everyone.
I don't know. Maybe I'm looking into it too much. Maybe Nathan isn't calling for people to have better communication so someone can cry out for help when their true self is in pain. This whole show is truly just about aviation safety, and we only see the other examples to put it in perspective for non-pilots. Because, you know, if they're here, that must mean they're fine. Until they're not.